For this to start. Wonderful. And we're live. Alright, you guys. Part 13 of 1 Samuel. And there's still more to go. So thank you for bearing with me. And thank you for paying attention at all sections. If you need to go back, no harm to you. Go back and listen to this story because it is quite riveting. Yes, quite riveting. Okay. We're going to go ahead and start out with a quote to give a little bit of context for the feel of this section or this portion here. It says, "Beware of the scribes, which love to go out in long clothing and love salutations in the marketplaces, and the chief seats in the synagogues, and the uppermost rooms at feasts, which devour widows' houses for a pretense, make long prayers." Those houses and for a pretense. I don't know if that word is supposed to be pretense. Let's go ahead and look up. This is from Mark chapter 12 verse 38. I think I was supposed to look up what that word was because I cannot read my penmanship. Chapter 12 verse 38. Let's see, and every version is different too, so sometimes it's hard to get the right words here. Okay, alright. Greeted with respect in marketplaces. Okay, let's go to the next one. Places of honor at banquets. They devour widows' houses, and for a show make lengthy prayers. Okay, these men will be punished most severely. Okay, very interesting. They devour widows' houses. Very interesting. Okay, well, let's go ahead and transcribe this so it's on the top. But the main theme of this one is greed and, of course, hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is very much a given because Jesus talks about this a lot. Okay? But that devouring of widows' houses really reminds me of greed or taking advantage of. And this is also going to show that the worship of God and your display of the love of God is for you and for no one else. It's for you and for the Lord, right? There is no sense in proving anything to anybody and no sense in gaining approval or disapproval from anybody else but you yourself and the Lord. That is between you and God. Rooms at feasts, which devour widows' houses, and for I'm just going to say, and for show, make lengthy prayers. Okay, and remember I said too, you can keep things short and sweet, right? Because when you go into a state of prayer, the Lord is already knowing of your heart. He already knows what's on your mind. And sometimes when the prayer is too long and we know the prayer really well, or we do it repeatedly and habitually, our mind tends to wander elsewhere during that moment. We think of the things that we're about to do, and I'm speaking from experience and knowing this. We think about the things we're going to do. We think about, problems we need to solve. So keeping the prayer succinct enough to go ahead and just let whatever emotion and let your heart free for a moment, so the Lord can take a look at it and absolve anything that you need to absolve. So again, this is, like I said, with the relationship. The relationship is between you and God. There's nothing that you need to prove to anybody but yourself and the Lord. Okay? And again, they're talking about the hypocrite in the sense that they do, these long prayers, and they, demand respect, and they eat up and take advantage of people. They have these great feasts, that sort of thing, and it promotes a sense of greed, or I deserve this because I have righteousness, that kind of energy. And so we are going to learn about, I guess, just a concept of greed in this section here. We're going to learn about a rich man who was very, very mean, and what the outcome of that would be. Okay, so let's begin with 1 Samuel chapter 25. It says here, "Now Samuel died, and all Israel assembled and mourned for him, and they buried him at his home in Ramah. Then David moved down into the Desert of Paran." So, I don't want to say finally, but Samuel did live a good long life. It doesn't say here at what age he died, but he was around for a good while, right? He oversaw a lot of different things in Israel. He was the uppermost priest, highly respected. He was known as the seer because of the prophecy that he gives and is given to from God. And yes, he's greatly respected, very, very prominent in Israel at this time. And unfortunately, this is the time now where he passes away. And things start to dissolve a little bit. David conjures up some space for himself to kind of remove himself from Saul. And so he moves into the Desert of Paran during this time. And then we go into this narrative here. It says, "A certain man in Maon, who had the property there at Carmel, was very wealthy. He had 1,000 goats and 3,000 sheep, which he was shearing in Carmel. His name was Nabal, and his wife's name is Abigail. She was an intelligent and beautiful woman, but her husband was surly and mean with his dealings. He was a Calebite." Okay, so we learned that this character here, Nabal, is from the tribe of Caleb. And whenever I hear about a tribe, it does make me want to go back and see what Jacob's prophecy was about him, or about the brother Caleb, right? I am curious to see. If it's good, I'll share it with you. Let's see here. Descendants. Too far in advance here. Okay, anyways, we learn about this man and his wife, right? The man is, although he's very rich, he's not the best in heart. He has a very surly attitude. Although I might be mistaken here. Thinking Caleb is one of 12. Although I think I'm mistaken. Judah, Issachar, Dan, Asher, Naphtali, Joseph, Reuben. So Caleb is actually perhaps a son of one of the 12. Sorry for the slowness this morning, guys. Okay, I'm sorry. So Caleb is from the tribe of Judah. Okay, so we can go ahead and ignore this for now. because the reason why I wanted to look too is I was kind of unfamiliar too with Caleb, so we can just go ahead and associate Caleb with Judah, but son of Caleb. Okay, wonderful. So let's get into this. So man was very wealthy. We can tell his wealth by the amount of livestock, right? That was the way of measuring wealth. And David is in the area with his people, with his little tribe here he has going on. And I believe they're kind of camped next to where the shepherds are, and they took the shepherds in and let them put their things with their things, and they kind of melded together, and they had some high spirits and good associations between them. I think he was very hospitable to the shepherds. I don't think it doesn't say that David and his group were the ones shearing the sheep, but apparently they were friends with the shearers. They're very in close quarters with them, just by due of being neighbors, right? So David wants to go ahead and ask the shearers and this man's people and his servants if he could, be hospitable to them also, and just be in good relations, essentially. So David wants to go ahead and send a message to Nabal, and it says here, "Now I hear that it is sheep-shearing time. When your shepherds were here with us, we did not mistreat them, and the whole time they were at Carmel, nothing of theirs was missing." And so they relay this message, and Nabal does not want to do anything of it, so they ask a servant to tell Nabal's wife, Miss Abigail. Okay, so they tell Miss Abigail, and they're like, "Now think it over and see what you can do, because disaster is hanging over our master and his whole household. He is such a wicked man that no one can talk to him." So even his servants are complaining about him and saying, "We can't talk to him, and there must be something that we can do for David," because originally I didn't put this in here, but Nabal essentially cursed David and said, "I don't know who you are, go away from me." He really kind of degraded and demoralized him, and didn't take a liking to his character at all. And that was a bit of an ego bruise for David, because everybody likes David. So for Nabal to go ahead and just trash him, he took it very personally, not knowing that Nabal was like this to pretty much everybody. But David took it personally, and I think he did threaten he did threaten either Nabal's life or his group's life. He said, "Okay, well, you want to act like that, I have something coming for you," essentially. So the servants did relay all of this to Abigail, and this is what she did. Abigail acted quickly. She took 200 loaves of bread, 2 skins of wine, 5 dressed sheep, 5 sows of roasted grain, 100 cakes of raisins, and 200 cakes of pressed figs, and loaded them on donkeys. She says, "And let this gift which your servant has brought to my lord be given to the men who follow you." And within this chapter, Abigail is really observant of David and his stature. She's very humble towards him. She's very kind. She's obviously very generous, but she commends him almost of being like close relationship with God. She very much reveres him, and the way that she talks about him, it's like somebody's talking to Jesus. That's what it reminded me of. David just appeared in this stature, and she immediately observed that and just completely appealed to him and almost bowed down to him. If she didn't, I'm pretty sure she did, but she was very, very reverent towards David. So that was kind of a symbol for him, and he felt much better after that, obviously. But then Abigail goes back to her husband, and he had a great feast, and he was drinking, not knowing that Abigail had given away all this food. And then in the morning, when Nabal was sober, his wife told him all these things, and his heart failed him, and he became like a stone. So essentially, he had a heart attack as soon as she told him that she gave just a portion of their great food away to David and his people. So imagine being so greedy where you literally have a heart attack. Just when you hear of someone giving some of your belongings, or even just hear of being generous, it causes you to go into heart failure. That is definitely something of God, right? But it goes to show the kind of character that Nabal was. Very, very stingy, very greedy, just rude all around, according to this. So he dies immediately after his wife explains this to him. I don't mean to laugh, I'm sorry, but it's just the abruptness at which it happened. I actually won't say immediately. I think he went into heart failure, then it was a few days. He then passed, a few days after that. But it says here, David sent word to Abigail asking her to become his wife. Okay, so that was the outcome. He really appreciated her submissiveness, I would say, and of course she was beautiful and intelligent, like it said above there. And it says David also married Ahinoam of Jezreel, and they both were his wives. So this shows he's a bit of a womanizer at this stage, right? He has one wife already, Ahinoam, and then he also asks Abigail to be his wife. And I don't want you to forget about Michal. Michal was previously his wife, but Saul had actually kind of taken her back and given her away to somebody else. So he no longer has Michal as his wife, but at this stage he has 2 new wives. So we're kind of learning about this side of David. Lawn maintenance is happening, so I'm going to cut this off. But God bless you guys. Thank you for listening.